Hi everyone, my name's Anthony Cummins. Welcome to this video. Now what I want to do today is talk about the future of samurai and the future of ninja. Now to get you all up to date this video is basically to set out what I plan to do for the next 10, 15, 20 or 30 years, just so you can keep up to date with what I'm doing and so you understand the way it's going to go. Now very briefly, the reason I want to say this is because in the past people who have produced books on the samurai have come into two distinctions really. You've got academics and translators who have translated original work, or they've done academic work, i.e. You know, the political structure of this time, the political structure of that time, the various armies of this time, you know. And they've done very, very good books, but they're extremely dry books, and they're generally read by academically minded people. Second type of people, books are done by experts in martial arts, i.e. they have done jiu-jitsu for X amount of years, so therefore they write a book on the samurai or the ninja, and you're like, okay, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And then they show you multiple sort of like martial arts moves, and you're like, this is not, you know, that doesn't tell me anything about the samurai, it doesn't tell me anything about the ninja. So what I want to say to you today is this is how academia works. I'm going to give you a very, very, very quick overview. What you've got is a very smart person who's gone and done a PhD, and let's be truthful, you've got the normal people, like I was definitely one of these normal people. I'm like trying to find my way until I went to university, and then, you know, you start to build an education up. But I'm still definitely from that place. I was never born with a decent intelligence. I had to force or forge some form of one. And what they do is they get the strand of their story. I'm not sure if you can see this, it's a gold piece of wire. And these clever people will sit in universities, and what they do is they find something they want to talk about the samurai, and they go, oh, okay, so let's give that an example of that Tokugawa's retinue structure and how it affected those around him. And then such a thing he will deal with, and then they go on to the next bit, and what they do then is they investigate their story, and they think, oh, that political move did this, and that political move did this, and that means that, and that means that, and that means that. So if he was talking to him, that means that they moved there and their koku was brought down, and this means that. So you get the point. What happens is you get a long structure, you get a long string of information, and that is how sort of an academic book works, because it's quite confusing when you come upon it. It's laid out, it's structured, and it's laid out. That's not what I'm saying. It's got a good structure, but you've got people who already have a background in the political field of the time. They've got a background in what's going on at the time, and then what happens is there's their facts they put together in some sort of, you know, they understand the organisation, and you know it is a following. You can follow it from one end to the other, but because they are bringing points from all over the place, it's quite distracting. But then what happens is, this is key, is you've got their story, if you zoom in, you'll be like, ah, okay, that's when he made this political move, and this one here is when he joined with such a clan, and this one here is when the castle burnt down, and they had to pay so much in, like, you know, restoration. It brought down their army, so they got rid of so many men, and that's that one. And they've got this picture here. But what happens is the human element comes in, and the human element is like my hand. So you've got a story you can follow, but what happens is they have their idea in their brain of what they want the story to tell, and they do this. That's their own opinion. And what happens is you get a very, very different, it's the same wire, it's the same turns, it's the same thing, but it's giving you from different angles. So it's like, look at the story from this angle, let's look at the story from this angle, let's look at it from that angle. And what happens is you get multiple academics who put these structured points together, and then what they do is they go to each other's point, and they're well aware of the situation in Japan, they're well aware of the history, so they pick up this and say, ah, that was the day that Tokugawa fought at the Battle of Sekigahara and won. Okay, so that means that. Then they put their theory in, and they mix theirs up. And what happens is, it's all very good. I'm not saying it's wrong, and I'm not saying it's mistaken, so please understand me. What I'm saying is, somebody new comes in, and if they have a great background in academics or in Japanese history, they come in, they see that and say, ah, okay, I can follow this. Ah, okay, that means that. But that's there, and that's... and they sort of follow it, and they can, but they spend weeks reading these articles and getting used to it. When you get a layman coming, so just the average common, don't be put off by the word layman. A layman is just, we use it in negative term, but layman's terms means in simple terms, and we've got an understanding now where we think layman's terms mean stupid. It doesn't. It means someone who has not had education in this specific area. So if you're a plumber and you're a full-on plumber and that's what you do for a job, you're not a layman in that. You are the professional, and somebody comes along and has a go at it is the layman. Now that's what it means. So most of the people watching this video, right, ask yourself this question. Do you work for a university? Did you do a PhD or a Master's? Have you done a PhD or a Master's to get that extra postgraduate work? Do you work for a university? Do you work for a museum? Do you write books for a living? What do you do? If the answer is no, it means you're a layman. It means you do it part-time. That's what you do. And you come along to this, which is not a problem. You're interested in ninjas and samurai. That's great. And you probably know a lot. But you don't know as much as someone who does it full-time for you know, all day for what they do. But that doesn't mean they're right at all. It just means they understand the argument. Please be aware of this. I don't mean that somebody who's got a PhD or does it right is automatically correct. Not in the slightest. Somebody without any education at all could come along and say, what about that? And totally throw it all out. Is that when you come along, the average person, you see this, you're totally confused. But you don't just see one, and you don't just see it manipulated by the human element of the academic. You see 1,000 of them or 100 of them, all in different books on the bookshelves. You go to your university library if you do that. I was there yesterday, and you're reading them and you're like, okay, that's that and that's that. And you've got to piece it all together. And it's very difficult. So my point being is, if you're a layman and you've got a job and you've been to work, you're thinking, I'm not going to spend my Friday night at the university library or my Sunday afternoon. I'm not going to go down and start looking at peer-reviewed journals. Like I was going through peer-reviewed journals yesterday. And my God, they're dull. They're excellent, but they're dull. What I want to do is start at the beginning. And while there are many people who know lots about the samurai, I want to start from scratch and build up with translations first. So what I'm going to do is build this up like that. This is the wire. Yep. And I'm going to try and build it through my books so that a layman can come along, look at it and go, ah, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, step 6, step 7, step 8. Okay, it's complicated, it's difficult, but I can follow the process. So do you understand what I'm doing, guys? With my books, I'm trying to do this so you can follow the process. The reason for this is that we are interested. The big question here is, why are we interested in samurai? We are not interested. Why are we interested in samurai, Vikings, Zulu warriors, medieval knights? Why are we interested in them? We don't care about the politics. We don't care. Some people do, but they're generally clever, geeky people who sit in a cupboard and like Harry Potter and just, you know, read lots of peer-reviewed journals. You're probably not one of those. I am not one of those. I really find that boring. So why do we do it? We do it because warriors are cool. They've got the cool factor. They do it because it inspires us. We do it because it inspires us. And we look at them because it's a martial thing. Nobody says, oh, you know, very few people like, I wonder what the rat catcher was doing in, like, you know, X time. And, oh, isn't that interesting? No, you don't find books on that. You find books on Vikings and they're full of muscly men striking people down because it's martial things we're interested in. And that's totally fine. So one of my stories I'd like to say is that when I was doing some of the documentaries and meeting some of the experts, and they were experts. For example, I met one gentleman who was an expert in armour, and my God, he baffled my brains. He was just like, this period, that period. I didn't even know the names of the periods. And he was like, and this political thing and that, and this piece of armour is this nut and this, that. And I was just like, wow, this man knows so much. I am so far away from being, you know, and I was classed as on the TV show, an expert with him, and I was like, you know, am I out of my depth here, and, you know, blah, blah. But then, you know, the striking point came, is they were doing a scene where they got two actors to run, one charged at another man with a sword, so they got a man on the ground, and the man charging him was, you know, was charging on the horse, and they I'm going to be thinking, oh, these guys, brilliant guys, dead nice guys, they were doing the reenactment, and they knew so much about armour, but when it came to the actual the idea was the horse run and that the samurai struck the guy down. And I watched, after all this knowledge, they charged up and the guy moved out of the way of the spear and hit him right across his breast. And I'm like, that is ridiculous. You know, I don't, no offence to these gentlemen, but it's like, really? You know, no, you wouldn't do that. The breastplate is to stop that type of thing, and why would you not? So I showed them, I said, well, let's look at the translations I've done. And the translations had said at that point that you cut down on the rein of the horse. So the man's gripping the reins, you cut the rein, or you cut across the horse or into the horse, and it rears, and as it rears, you can then put it under his armpit or underneath the throat here, and you slam it. Or if you've got a spear, you hit the peak here and slam down. And in that moment, I realised that these people, they know so much about a very narrow corridor and about political movements and armour and this, that they've totally missed the point of why we like samurai. We like samurai and ninja because of the martial aspect, because of the military aspect, because of the intelligence, the skills. So my point being, guys, is that of all the books out there which are superb, you have to have a great background to come in and read them and sort of get what's going on. And after you've finished that, you don't really get what you wanted. So what I'm going to do in the next 20 to 30 years, what I've been doing for the last 5 years, is my first step is see what the samurai say themselves. So, and the ninja, and the shinobi. So let's translate the Bansen Shukai, let's translate Nippiden, Gunpo Joshu, Igun Koga, Shoninki, Samurai War Stories. Now, that pretty much, apart from Samurai War Stories, that covers the basics of the ninja. Of course, we're starting to see a form of what ninjutsu actually was now. Now, the next, I'm going to be translating all the natori-ryu material, step A to step Z, in proper lines of how to be a samurai. And that's what we're going to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to start seeing the boundaries of samurai. And that's going to show us that we have the boundaries of what the ninjas say they did, and the boundaries of what the pure samurai, non-ninja samurai said they did. And will give us an idea of what they actually did as skill sets, so that we know what they did as skill sets. Now, what happens after that? So now, after that, we need to start putting Buddhism into it. We need to start putting other religions into it. Political slants. So all those politics that people have done for years and years can come into it. Equipment, which has been done and, you know, multiple times, can come into it. But now, through these translations, we will understand more about why the equipment was used in such a way. For example, in natori-ryu, what length of peak should you have and why should you have it? Those type of questions. When we see people talk about peak lengths in armour manual, in armour books, why was it such a way? Why was the colour under the peak such a thing? But then finally, or alongside that, we put in the human element. I had some complaints recently that we didn't have the human element in there. Now the reason is this, is because in the past that's what they did, is let's have the, you know, what does this politics mean? What does that mean to this person? What does that, that's why it's all a tangled mess, is because we put the ending at the beginning. And many people think that in academia you have to be really, say, intelligent questions, you have to ask intelligent things and make things very complicated, and you know, it's just, that is not how it works. What you do is you should, in theory, take away the human element. And while academia is very complicated, it should be built properly. But a lot of people, and then you have a background noise like I discussed before, but a lot of people on Facebook just randomly write really complicated sentences, and a couple of other people who sort of understand the situation have a discussion, and 2 or 3 people discuss it, and it doesn't benefit anyone. So I'm talking to the layman out there, the person like me who started at the beginning saying, actually, I don't really know what's going on here. I don't really care what the politics say, and I don't really care so much about what lace they used on their armour. I want to know why they were using it, how they were using it. What, you know, I don't really care what the ham-on is on the, you know, the shape of the tip. It's like, but what does it do to a body? How do you cut open a body? You know, do you thrust with it? Do you not thrust with it? All those questions. Right, I've got to go, guys. So the point being is, I've got a new book coming out. I'll put the link below. It's not out yet, but it should be out in July for pre-order, then later. So keep checking the link below. But my point is this, is don't worry too much about making this overcomplicated. I am going to stick to this for the rest of my life, and I'll be bringing you out books of skills, and bit by bit, me and you, and I'm personally me and you, like the guy out there reading it, we can build a proper image of the samurai, and you can then share it with other people, and we can together build a real good image, and then introduce these really complicated politics things at the end. And I better go. See you later, chaps. Bye bye.